podcast where your purpose is just moments away, and I am here to help you get there. Y'all, you see me, so you know it's time for a new episode, and I want my guest to introduce himself, and we'll get right into the episode.
All right, so hey everyone, my name is Terrell Nelson. I am a ordained minister, but currently, professionally, I am the executive director for the Florida Council on the Social Status of Black Men and Boys, and I'm super excited to be here.
So excited. So just a little background about Terrell. Me and Terrell actually attended FAMU together.
Yes, we did.
So when a rattler reaches out to you about wanting to be a part, you don't have no choice but to say yes.
Right.
And I'm so excited for him to be here. And today we're talking about wholeness.
Man.
So jump right in, Terrell. What is wholeness? Like how do we get to wholeness?
You know, so I think that's an interesting concept because a lot of times we hear people talk about wholeness, right? But we hear people talk about wholeness in the aspect of relationships.
Yeah.
And more specifically, romantic relationships. But they talk about it from the standpoint of you don't go into a relationship as a half a person.
Right.
Each one of you have to be whole to come together
Correct.
to whatever. But I think that as an individual person, we don't talk enough about what it means to be whole as an individual, right?
Yeah.
And at least for me, what God has given me and what He has exposed me is, so it's two things.
Yeah.
Wholeness is understanding who you are as a complete person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times, you know, I'm a big Jesus lover, so I think a lot of times we'll understand who we are in the natural world, but we lack that understanding in the spiritual world. And it's almost like I see the natural and the spirit as divorced parents.
Yeah.
You know, where we know a lot about our mama's side of the family, which is the natural sense, but we don't know anything about our dad's side of the family, which is the spiritual sense. So for me, wholeness is you maximizing on your full capacity. You knowing exactly who you are, which means that nothing or no one can come in and sway you, can influence you, can shake you. And so do understand that even in your journey to wholeness, you still will have those moments where you doubt.
100%.
You know, you'll have those moments where you're frustrated. You'll have those moments where people will try to question your wholeness, because I've ran into those things as well. But I think true wholeness is you understanding the fullness of who you are to be able to drive out purpose.
Yeah, 100%. And I share my testimony with you a little bit before we hopped on the screen, but that was a big deal for me.
Right.
The big deal for me was like, okay, well, I know I have purpose, but where do I fit in my purpose? Like, where do I fit in the purpose that God has for me? Because it's like, I can say I want to do all these things, but is it in alignment with what He told me? And so going through my time, I was like, okay, God, well, I'm just going to sit still, right? I'm going to sit still, and I'm going to wait. And then, like I told you, and that's how the podcast came along, right? Because, like my episode this week said, like, your words have power. And once you start speaking that on yourself and on your life, that wholeness will begin to come, because it's like, okay, well, I know that I'm speaking it into existence. So if I'm speaking wholeness, that means wholeness is coming. That means wholeness is on the way, right? So what does your environment have to do with your wholeness? Because is it more of you needing to isolate yourself until you get it together? Or is it more of you running to your friend circle or your family to try to complete your wholeness? Like, how does your environment play a role in your wholeness?
So I think that's good. But I want to talk a little bit about fitting into purpose, right? So we know that in Jeremiah 29:11, it says, "For I know the plans that I have for you," right?
Sir.
But He also tells us that, "For I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb," right? So God knew. So what I like to tell people is that there's a difference between the spirit and the soul.
Yeah.
The spirit belongs to God.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, if we're not careful, we would spend the rest of our lives trying to purify something that's already been purified. The spirit is already purified.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no reason why we should spend our lives asking God to purify our spirit. The spirit is purified. But what's not purified is the soul. So we have to make sure that we are asking God to help us with our soul.
Yeah.
Because God said that there are lost souls that we have to bring back into the body of Christ.
Yes.
So because because God knew me before I was formed in my mother's womb, he gave me purpose.
Yeah.
And one thing I know about God, he doesn't duplicate purpose.
No.
So because the purpose is so rightfully yours, you don't have to fit into it.
Yeah.
Because it is specifically tailored to who you are as a person.
Yeah.
So no matter the mistakes you make, because you got to remember that to God, mistakes are modifications.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
And so when we think about the trajectory of our lives, right? When we think about all the things that we've done in this life, the demand on your life won't change.
Not at all.
But your mistakes could modify some things.
Yeah.
But even through the modifications, you will still get to the destination.
And I was just about to say that, because we as people, it's like we feel like I told you earlier, like once I make that mistake, like it's over. You know,
it's just a modification.
It's over.
Yeah.
But in that time, like going through my time, like I had to get back closer to God.
Right.
I had to get back in the church.
Right.
I had to get back to what I knew. Right. And I'm telling you, and once I got there, I was like, okay, you know, I felt bad, but it's like, but he forgives me. It's not like he's gonna hold it against me, but it's just a stepping stone into where I have to go next.
And so you answered your question, the environment.
The environment.
You know, and so we think about wholeness. So first of all, we have to remember that God didn't call us to a place of isolation.
Yeah.
That's not who we are. That's not how we were naturally built. That's not how we were spiritually built. And I think a lot of times people love to say that you were born by yourself. Well, there were people in the delivery room. Somebody
was there.
But regardless of who wasn't there, your mama was there.
Right.
So you wasn't born by yourself, right? But I think that in order to really, really capture the full essence of wholeness is that you got to get into the presence that deemed you whole. And that's Christ.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times people think that what they say, I want to take a moment to step back and do some soul searching and all of that stuff. Well, here's the thing. So a lot of times what happens is that your spirit is willing, but the soul hasn't got the notice that it's time for advancement.
Yeah.
Because the spirit doesn't hold trauma.
Yeah.
The soul does.
The soul does, right.
And so because the spirit is already a whole thing, the soul is the thing that's broken.
Yeah.
So what we're really trying to do in this life is make the soul whole.
Yeah.
And so in order to do that, you got to be able to have those hard conversations with yourself to be able to pluck out exactly what's going on the inside of the soul. Why am I offended? Why am I on the offense? Why does this trigger me? Why does this bother me? So when we talk about environment, the environment is the presence of God.
Yeah.
The environment is spiritual community.
Yeah.
The environment is you being able to create a psychological safe space for yourself.
Yeah.
To be able, because there was a time in my life when I was an undergrad, I used to be this super helpful, giving, active guy, right?
You were.
So I was very genuine in my giving, and I was very genuine in who I was and in terms of helping. I had a lot of friends that used to tell me, Terrell, you need to stop doing this because people are using you. And never in a million years I stopped doing, because why is it my responsibility to know who's using me?
Yeah.
Because I have so much, because the so much that I put out in the world.
Right.
But I think a lot of times what happens is that you got to make sure that in your journey to wholeness that you are around people that recognize that journey.
Mm-hmm.
They recognize that journey, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love about people that recognize my journey is they're gonna say that Terrell he's never not gonna give God the glory.
Yeah.
He's never not gonna give God what he's due, because I understand the severity of acknowledging God in all of my ways. In literally all of my ways. And so when I think about the environment, of wholeness, it's literally you being in a place where you can give everything back to God.
Yeah.
Having those hard conversations with God and feeling good about that.
Yeah.
Because I think about a lot of times, every time I go to God with a very tough thing that I'm wrestling or battling with, when I'm done, I feel good because I know I'm not judged.
Yeah, and you know that it's gonna stay with
between
him.
me and God.
Like it's not going nowhere, right? And I think that's the thing that we have to keep in the back of our minds too. It's like when you go to him, you give it to him, leave it there.
Leave it there.
It's not for you to go and talk to your best friend about your... No.
Right.
You and God had that conversation.
I have this thing where I say, when you're going through something, go up, not left. And I think a lot of times when we're going through certain things in life, we love to go left.
Yeah.
And left can be mom, left can be best friend, left can be this. And if you're not careful on your journey to wholeness, you would be telling people about the journey that have no clue what it means to be whole. And so that's almost like me being a married man, constantly going to single people for advice.
Yeah, when they don't know nothing about what.
Or that's just like me saying, hey, how do I maneuver through Texas? And I'm going to a person that's never been to Texas. So if I'm on the journey to wholeness, why am I talking to somebody that can care less about that?
Yeah, and who's not even on that path yet, who's still low-key trying to figure themselves out. And I think, to me, that was one thing that kind of like clicked in my mind. Like you said, it's like you can't go to people who haven't been through it, who are not on it, even though you call them your friend or your sister, but they're not going to be able to understand it because they're not there yet.
And wholeness is a language.
Yeah.
It's a edification, it's a purification, a sanctification, and it's you understanding the justification, right? Wholeness is a language. Wholeness says that I'm not chasing a bag because I understand that I already have it. I just got to get in.
I got to get in it. Hello.
And so a lot of people always say, well, I'm chasing a bag. Well, why are you chasing something that you already have? You already have. You just got to get in it.
You got to step into it.
And so to me, when you have that kind of language, that lets me know that you haven't even grasped the concept of wholeness and what that actually looks like, what that actually, feels like, and so, I mean, wholeness it's a really big thing.
No, it is. And I feel like we're so focused on what society says that we have to be, or what the world says that we have to be. So it's like we're chasing perfection, right? And we know that no one's perfect. No one's perfect. Right. And then we have to understand that at sometimes, like, our stuff is going to stink. Like, it's going to stink. It's gonna stink.
And it might stink better than the next person. And you gotta, so, one of the things that I absolutely love, and me and my wife, we oftentimes say this, that it's not a this or that. It's a this and that. That she say, babe, you can be this good looking, Renaissance man. Right. But you got pride.
And ain't nothing like your wife telling you that. Because you like, wait a second.
So this is what I'm saying. It's her telling me that I got it going on. But then on the other side of that, in order for me to keep I got it going on, I got to make sure that I'm checking off all this negative. Yeah. Right? But here's the thing, though. I think a lot of times if we're not careful, we want to live a life where we're just always deemed as good.
Yeah.
And the moment that someone points out, because who wants to be critiqued?
Nobody.
The moment that someone points out what we're not doing or what we should be doing, we get on the offense. And I've been guilty of that.
Yes, same.
So we gotta make sure that we're telling people. It's almost like you can be good to a person for so long, and the moment that you do something bad, they write you off. Well, that's because that person hasn't understood two things. They haven't understood wholeness and grace. Yeah. Because if you did something to me and I immediately write you off, that means that I have neglected every good thing that you have done.
Listen.
What kind of hunky-dory stuff is that?
But my whole thing is in too, and it hurts your feelings because it's like you know that you would never do that to that person.
No.
You would give them that grace. Even if you did something that ticked me off to the most, I'm still gonna love you anyway. Right. I'm still gonna forgive you anyway.
And we're on this whole see, one thing that I've learned about the world that we live in today, people use certain spiritual words almost if it's like it's a trend these days. So the word grace. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
I think everybody now is using the word grace, or they're saying that I'm gonna give you grace. Well, here's the thing. When you truly have God, you don't have to announce what you're doing for a person. Because do you think every 5 seconds God is saying, I'm going to give you grace? He just gives it.
He just gives it to you, right.
And so who would I be if I constantly tell every person that I'm going to give you grace, I'm just going to give you the grace.
And I'm not going to say nothing
I'm going to give you the grace, but understand I'm not going to be stupid about the grace, right? And so I think a lot of times you got to remember that I'm not Jesus. I have limits.
I have limits, I got boundaries.
I got limits and I got boundaries.
I got boundaries.
But we also want to make sure that we are educating people that grace eventually runs out.
It does. It does.
The mercy eventually runs out. So when you get to the gates, what did he say? He said, for you'll come to the gates, and I'll say, for I don't know you. He said he'll spit you out.
Yeah.
And so when we think about our wholeness is just being able to capture the true essence of who we are as people, our whole selves.
Yeah.
And so when we think about God being the Trinity, right?
Yep.
The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, that's his whole self. We are the body, the spirit, and the soul. But so that's just like a believer only paying attention to the spirit.
Yeah.
You have not captured your whole self.
Yeah.
That's just like a natural person only paying attention to the soul. You have not. So wholeness is you being attentive to the whole picture.
Yeah.
The body, having physical health.
Right.
The spirit, make sure that you have that direct line in communication with Christ so that you can recognize how pure the spirit and the soul, eliminating anything that doesn't go.
Right.
Because the spirit and the soul has to be in partnership with each other.
It does.
But what happens is that the spirit is the thing that guides us, but then the soul is the thing that holds us back if we don't get rid of the holes that's in our soul.
That's in our soul. And that's the thing too. And I feel like people don't understand that. Because honestly, like your spirit can be leading you somewhere. Like you're on it. Like I'm there.
And the soul keeps you afraid.
And it's like, oh my God, but can I really do it?
That's the soul.
Can I really go for it? Like our people, and listen, because my soul had me with the podcast. Not gonna tell no story. Because I was like, well, God, okay, like I hear you. Okay, I'm gonna do it.
Right.
But it's like, but are people really gonna listen to me? Like, are people really gonna? Yeah, like, are people really gonna hear what I have to say?
Absolutely.
And so, but God just was like, I didn't tell you anything. I just told you to do it. I just told you to do it, and watch it, and watch it.
Because the spirit is whole.
Yes.
The spirit is whole, but the thing is with the spirit is trying to get the soul to be whole.
Yeah.
And you know.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times when you grew up in the church, or when you, and I personally didn't grow up in the church. You know, I've been saved for about 11 years now, but I had to really find God on my own because that just wasn't the culture or the environment in which I grew up in. And no fault to my family. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
But I think a lot of times what happens is that we as believers, we don't talk enough about the soul. So we talk about saving lost souls.
Yeah, we
do. But what does it really mean to have a lost soul? We talk a lot about the spirit. You hear a lot about Holy Spirit. You hear a lot about the spirit, the spirit, the spirit, the spirit. And we pay, and granted, as we should. But God wants us to talk about the wholeness of the person, right? And so, once again, it goes back to, why am I trying to make the spirit whole when it's already whole?
Yeah, I ain't focusing on the soul.
I got to make sure that my soul is whole, so that my soul is not the weakest link to the spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because
if my spirit is guiding me.
Like this.
Right. If my spirit is guiding me, but if my soul don't get the notice, now my soul will keep me in a place. And you got to remember, the soul is the thing that stores the trauma.
Yeah. And then the thing is too, and you have to be okay with working on your soul. You gotta be okay with working on your soul.
Let me tell you something.
You gotta be okay with working on your soul. Because your spirit is gonna be there all day, every day.
The spirit. Well, and here's the thing though, and here's a caveat to everyone who's watching. If you are rebellious against the spirit, he said he'll take his presence from you. Yeah. So imagine a life where all you have is the soul.
Yeah. You're gonna be going.
So you don't got nothing backing you. You don't.
Nothing.
Well, let me tell you about that spirit though. It's a gangster.
100%.
The spirit is a true, and the soul is always gonna be, you know, that thing that the spirit is just a strong force. It's just built very differently.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you have the spirit and it recognizes that you need a little push to get that soul right, that spirit will hem you up against a wall.
Oh, what? It will check you.
It will hem you up against a wall, and it'll force you to literally spiritually throw up. Like, have you ever had a moment where you was just throwing up spiritually? Just getting rid of all of that stuff, and you literally feel nauseous. You literally feel like something really literally came out of you. That's because the spirit is just like, I'm about tired of you.
I'm going to get you.
I'm about to get you.
I'm about to get you.
I'm about to get you, right? And so I had that moment back in 2020 when I lived in Mississippi and I was going through a really, really hard time. Yeah. And everything that I didn't pay attention to, everything that I didn't recognize, everything that I didn't want to pay attention to, and I was really busy in undergrad, one for the sole reason that I didn't want to deal with what I didn't want to deal with, right? But then I got to an isolated place. Now, isolation is... it's crucial when God says crucial. Right. You got some people that just be wanting to be isolated.
Just want to, and
I guess you find that to be cute. I guess you find that to be a really awesome thing. I don't know any animal that wants to be by themselves. So I don't know why humans always want to be by themselves. It's a very unhealthy. It's an unhealthy thing, right? Yeah. But literally, when I was living in Mississippi, everything that I didn't deal with, even as a little boy in elementary school. You talk about demons literally knocking on the door saying, we here. Yeah. And then what do? So you can either close the door, but they're going to come in.
They're still going to come in, right.
But what happens when you are being attacked from Satan and God all at the same time?
Because now you're probably like, okay, so like you said, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to come back?
What you got to do is now you got to decide what battlefield you're going to be on. And always we should choose the battlefield of Christ. Because in the meantime, while God was purging me of a thing and trying to get things out of me and trying to get me to recognize some things, Satan was trying to put things in my mind. And we also just want to make sure that in our season of Wholeness, we can differentiate the voices. Yes. You know, because I think a lot of times we give Satan a lot of credit. And so Satan don't care nothing about your car
at all.
You know, when you go out in the morning, the car don't crank up and you got a flat tire, we quick to say this ain't nothing but the devil. No. What if it's God trying to get your attention of the thing? Or what if you did leave the house and you got in a car accident? Like, I think a lot of times we love to give Satan the credit that God did. And you got to be able to, and Wholeness teach you that. Yeah. Wholeness teach you how to differentiate when it's God and when it's the enemy trying to attack you. Yeah. Most times the enemy don't care nothing about your physical or natural world. He cares about your purpose and your destiny. Yes. Most of your attacks are going to be mentally, emotionally, those are the attacks of the enemy. To try to take you out of a thing. He don't care nothing about your car.
About that. And the thing is too, and I had to learn that as well, because and sometimes you get in those modes, like you said, of doubt, of fear. Right. And it's just like, well, God didn't give me the spirit of fear.
He didn't.
He didn't give me the spirit of doubt. So why am I feeling like this?
Right.
Why is the devil trying to talk me out of something that's already promised to me? That's already mine.
Because he knows the magnitude of the promise.
Yeah.
And so it's just like when God told Moses to free the children out of Egypt, right?
Yeah.
And you think about how mighty, how awesome, how wonderful they are. Pharaoh was Satan. You know, wanted to keep them in captivity, wanted to keep them in slavery, and literally on their journey to be with Moses, literally they was just like, listen, you ain't got what it needs to free. Send us back.
We done.
But if we're not careful, we would almost have that Stockholm syndrome towards the enemy. We're used to the slavery. Yeah. We're used to to him capturing us and keeping us in a place of bondage. We're used to that,
right?
And so I think about in slave time, how a lot of them did it run away because of, of course, fear. Yeah. But a lot of them had Stockholm syndrome. Yeah. It was like, where else we gonna go?
Yeah,
this is all that we know. Right. The Bible does tell us explicitly that God didn't give us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. But here's the thing, he didn't say we wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
Because fear is an emotion.
Yes, it is.
But it's also an illusion. Fear is presenting an alternative world.
Yeah. So if I don't do this,
then this is what's
gonna happen.
But sometimes what happens is he'll put a falseness inside of you. So a lot of times is that you can go out this way and then he'll try to put an alternative view and that makes no sense to your destiny. You be like, that's not who I am.
Man, listen, been there, done that.
Right.
Been there, done that.
And so I think a lot of times when we're talking about the Word of God or when we're talking about wholeness, one of the things that me and my wife were really big on is words.
Yeah.
We're and definitions.
Yeah.
What does this actually mean? What does wholeness actually mean? So we talk a lot about, people love to quote, God didn't give me the spirit of fear, of power, the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. But fear is an emotion.
It is.
No one said we weren't gonna have it.
Right.
So just like anger, but here's the thing: the fear can't keep you bound.
No.
Fear can't keep you paralyzed. And I love this. They say one of the ways to conquer fear is to attack it head on.
Yeah, just go for it.
Just go for it.
Just go for it.
And so I think about a child jumping off of a high diving board. I'm scared.
Yeah.
There's that fear.
Yeah.
Something is telling me not to do it.
Yeah.
But then I just gotta go.
Go for it.
And then when I actually go for it, and I think a lot of times if we stop running away from fear, because a lot of times we do things so we won't be fearful.
Oh, we won't. Yeah. Or we
But
try.
we gotta stop running from fear because fear is an emotion. It's something that's gonna be present, right?
Always,
it's something that God just said He didn't give it to us.
Yeah.
So we know that it doesn't belong to God, but we know that God. I'm angry right now. You get what I'm saying? Like
I'm mad.
So we know that God made emotions, right?
Yeah.
God said that He didn't give us fear,
right?
But we also know that fear is one of those things that it's gonna present itself. So we don't run from fear when we see it, but we attack it head on and say, "Hey, God said He didn't give me you, but He gave me power, love, and a sound mind. So guess what? Now I know how to deal with you.
Right.
I know how to deal with fear because God said He didn't give me that."
And my biggest thing too, I think I'm in this place in my life now where it's just like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, what's the worst that can happen if I face it head on and I take the leap? Either I can succeed or either I can fail. But either way,
I'm gonna be good because He said all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord.
I'm gonna be so fine. I think, and I had to get out of that too, because I'm always scared, like, to put something new out or do something new. But it's just like I said, what's the worst that can happen?
What's the worst that can happen?
What's the worst that can happen?
And truthfully, what it is that if you save one, you've done your job. And so I think a lot of times we get very anxious or we get very scared. Because the Bible says also be anxious for nothing.
Yeah.
We get very anxious and we get very scared because putting yourself out here in the world is a very vulnerable thing.
It is.
And you don't know how people are going to take you, how they're going to receive you. Yeah. But the truth of the matter is, when you post this podcast, to the world, it's out there, right?
It's there. It's
regardless if we have 100 negative comments and we get one positive one, we've done our job.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we live in a world where people are very into numbers.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm guilty of that. There were times where I've stopped production on the thing because I wasn't seeing the numbers. But here's the thing: if I'm a cook and I'm a baker and I do all these things, if I get 5 faithful clients, I shouldn't stop production because of those people. God said that He would leave 100
just to come for them.
Just to come for the one.
Just to come.
He'll leave the 10,000 just to come for the one.
Just for the one.
So I just encourage everyone that's watching that you can be the one.
Yes.
That God can lead and God will maneuver and God will shut a thing down.
Yeah.
Just think about that.
Yeah.
God will shut a thing down for you.
Yes. Yes.
He would leave the 10,000 just to come tend to your needs.
Just to come grab you. Just to come say, hey, I'm right here.
Just to comfort you. Just to give you a thing. Like that in itself, oh my God.
Yeah, it's powerful because a person that you know, half of the time won't even leave a crowd to come see about you. They won't leave the popular crew or the popular table just to come see about you.
But God said, I'll leave all of that just to come see
about you.
Because think about it. One of my favorite scriptures is, He said, they honor me with their lips and their tongues, but their hearts are far from it. Imagine God being in front of 10,000 people that's worshiping Him with His tongue, and their hearts are not for God. And God will literally go entertain the one that the heart is in the right place.
Yeah.
So I think, again, I think a lot of times is that when we do and I'm telling you, God is raising up a new generation of people. When we talk about these podcasts and when we talk about these businesses, God is doing something new. There have been some people that's been in the basement. There have been people that's been working endlessly to get what it is that they need because they have a true heart for God and they have a true heart for God's people. And I'm telling you now, what's about to happen are God is about to button those people up, and He's about to send them to the top. Where people been booming and doing their thing, but God is about to bring those people down. Because the basement people are the ones that have the heart.
They have the heart,
And so I tell people all the time, don't be impressed. I'm telling you, I meet all kinds of people. People would say, oh, I'm a doctor. So what? I got a friend in medical school. Or I got this. So what?
So what?
Because at the end of the day, one of the biggest things that I'm really keen on is, who are you as a person? So you can have all this. Oh my God.
Titles don't mean nothing.
They don't mean absolutely nothing. Now titles give order.
Okay.
They give order.
Okay.
They give place. They give position. We need titles because titles have they have a rightfulness, in the world that we live in, right? Titles do give order. So there's a need for them. But we also have to remember that you can't hold on so much to the title. I just told some students over when I was lecturing just the other day that leadership, there's no destination in leadership. It's an ongoing journey. But leadership is not a title. It's a process. So I tell people now as a married man, husband is my title. But even in me having the title as husband is a process.
It is.
So I got to wake up every day knowing that I have a wife and knowing that I have a good thing, and I got to carry that process out. Parenting is a process.
So process.
It's a ongoing journey, and the kids decide the destination. But if you're not careful, what'll happen is that you would get so full of yourself, and you want to dictate the journey in their destination.
And you can't do that.
No.
You can't do that. And honestly, and as a parent, that's something that I'm learning. It's like I want my son to be his self. So whether that's him hyper running all over the place, I still love you.
I still love you.
Whether it's him like, Mom, I just want to lay down and just chill out. I don't feel like being bothered. Okay, cool. But at the end of the day, it's my job just to make sure that I'm just pruning you for what God wants you to do. I'm just making sure that I'm just, giving that little push. Like, hey, and say, all right, God, here you go. Like,
and it goes back to how do we raise whole children? Right? And so, with everything that we said, we raise whole children by getting children at a young age to understand who they are. That the first time that a daughter shouldn't hear the word beautiful externally before she hears it internally. As a father, as a man of the household, I should be the one to tell my children how beautiful they are, how talented they are, how special they are. Because everything, it starts internally, because if they go out in the world, somebody can not only call them beautiful, but manipulate the story. They could manipulate the story. And so I think that to raise whole children is you're offering something that's sustainable. You're talking about giving them emotional intelligence. You're talking about giving them that cultural diversity. You're talking about giving them sympathy, empathy. Everything. You're making sure that your child has an all-encompassing personality to be able to deal with the chaos of the world. Right. And so and I think a lot of times what happens is if you're a parent and you raise your children out of fear, you create this very simple-minded child, and then that's where children will grow up to feel like they're better. But even in the midst of them feeling like they're better, they have the most insecurities. And they have the most doubts, because I had a mom and a dad that raised me out of their insecurities. They raised me, and believe it or not, you have a lot of, and I'll just say it, you have a lot of people that say that they love God, but those are the ones that mostly raise their kids out of insecurities. I can tell you, my grandmother was a woman, again, God wasn't the culture of the household, so she really taught us morality. She really, really taught us how to just be good people, you know. And then when I coupled that thing with Jesus, right. But my grandmother didn't raise us out of fear. And how I know she didn't raise us out of fear is that she did all that she could. She gave us the process as children, right? But then as we got older and started making our own decisions, she was completely fine. Because she understood that I'm no longer so I'll always be your parent, but now the parent has to be on the back burner, and now I'm just your parental consultant.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm just a consultant now.
That's it.
So when you come to me for advice, I can offer you a suggestion, but I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you
what to do, yes. And that's the thing is, too, because a lot of kids are being raised on a pedestal.
Oh, man.
You know? Yeah. Like, they can't do no wrong. Regardless of what happens, something bad, like I'm gonna get you through it. You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of kids don't have to go through anything. A lot of them don't have to understand what it's like to have different.
Because all of these parents are raising their kids with this one phrase: I want my child to have an experience what I did. Well, so here's the thing with that. So I see the positive of that.
Yeah.
But I think that when you raise a child saying that I want my kid to have everything I didn't have, there are gaps.
Yeah.
There are gaps because now, let's say I didn't have nothing.
Yeah.
You're telling me that no matter what, I'm going to give my kid everything. And what happens is we get further and further away from the story. The story of struggle. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that my child has to struggle, because who wants their kids to struggle?
Nobody wants their kids to struggle.
But it's important for me to illustrate the story. Yeah. It's important for me to tell my kids how hard dad have worked. It's important, and I mean, I don't have any children.
But when you get,
it's important for me to tell that story, because if we're not careful, we'll be raising monsters.
Yeah.
Because they don't know great grandma's story. No. They don't know grandma's story. They don't know the sacrifices that, and now you got kids telling their parents to shut up. And
like
get out my face, and you know, all of this stuff. And so just back then when I was being raised, my grandma would say, I'm gonna knock your teeth out of your mouth, you know. And some people would say that's
abusive.
That's right, it's abusive or it's harsh parenting, but it worked. And I think that if we're not careful, we can raise our kids out of insecurities and passivity. Yeah. And then now kids get to dictate and decide what the day is gonna look like. No. My wife just told me last night. She said options.
What are those? What are those?
And I think that you should have a healthy balance. I think that kids should get the ability to choose.
Right.
But at no point do I want my child to think that they have hierarchy in the home.
And you don't, because you know.
Go get a job.
Yeah, and then you know too. Because, like, I mean, my son isn't being raised in a two-parent household, but that two-parent dynamic, though, that's the thing, you know, because if daddy say no, and mama say yes, well...
You confuse the child, though, with that. The parents, see, and that's another thing. Parents need to make sure that before you have children, you guys have that conversation, that you guys are on one accord, and you are in alignment about how you want to raise your children. Because if you're not careful, kids are so clever, and they'll run game on you.
What?
So they know that, okay, mom is the knower, but dad is the yeser. And so I'm never going to go to mom. But then what happens is you draw a wedge between the mother and her children because the father is the lenient one.
Yeah.
But then the father is not telling the children how they do need to develop a relationship with mom. Because kids gravitate to the easier parent.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
But if both parents have a balance of yes and no, now we've created synergy.
Yeah. Because now it's like, okay, they on one accord, so I know I can't play one against the other.
I can't play that.
I can't do that.
Not at all. And so it goes back to raising whole children. But then what happens when you're not whole and you're a broken person raising children?
Yeah, I mean, because to me, I feel like that means your children will be broken.
They pick up broken pieces. Mm-hmm. They go through life. And me and my wife, we're watching this show on Hulu called The Parent Test.
Oh, okay.
Great show, but more and more as we watch the show, one of the things that I'm realizing is that you have a lot of parents that have not resolve a lot of their childhood issues, and now you're raising your children out of fear. You're raising your children out of the stuff that you didn't resolve.
Yeah, and then you're trying to make sure that it doesn't show up in their life. So they don't have something to work.
So that's what we mean by wholeness.
Yeah.
You doing the necessary work so that you can be all encompassing. And so it's really the soul that you got to get.
You got to get together.
I mean, and the body, if you're not doing right with your body,
with your body, right?
With your body, you're putting all kinds of stuff inside your body, But the soul, the spirit is already a purified thing. Yes, the spirit is already whole. The spirit is already put together. The spirit is so good. It's chilling. It's waiting.
Fine. It's just waiting on you to get it.
But the soul is the thing that we want to make sure that we are perfecting.
Yes.
And so you want to make sure that you have good stewardship over the body,
over your body,
over the spirit, over the soul.
Right.
And so I tell you, man, when something is bothering me, God, what is this?
Yeah, like
why is it bothering
me?
Why did that trigger me the way that it did? Why did that affect me the way that it did? Because if you don't have those conversations, you will live your entire life leaking.
Yeah, because
the soul is leaking.
And because you're not trying to fix it. You rather just speed past it and just keep going.
And then you will start bleeding out on the wrong people, on the wrong thing, and you'll never be able to reach full capacity because you are bleeding and you keep putting a Band-Aid over the wound.
And when he's trying to get you to the point to where it can be fixed or we can mend it. So that way when it pops up again, you're not as easily triggered. Or it's like, oh, okay, like, oh, whatever. That's like I done been through that.
Right,
it's fine.
Right.
But you have to get in that mindset of wholeness is two parts working together to become one.
That's it.
That's it.
Working together become one. It's the Trinity on the inside of you.
Yeah.
Where you got to make sure that all three of you, because God says that you're in me and I'm in you, right? And if we are imitators of Christ, we mock Christ. Just like God is the Trinity, He also put a Trinity in us. And what makes God so wonderful, so perfect, everything about the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost is always in alignment.
Always.
But what hinders us is we don't have the alignment, because alignment has a lot to do with holiness.
Yeah.
Making sure that the body is signaling the spirit is signaling the soul, and your soul, and I mean them things are working together like a well-oiled machine.
They right.
And so those are just that's just the premise on really what it means to be whole and how we can really maneuver through this life, but really just start having those hard conversations. And everything doesn't have to be a crying battle.
No.
Everything don't. I mean, we don't have to make everything emotional. I think that
no.
if we're not careful, we will live this such emotional life and we'll never get to the root of the problem because I'm tired of crying. Well, everything doesn't have to be a crying situation. We just need to deal with what we need to deal with.
And regardless of how hard it is, that we said, we just facing it head on. And that's my thing too, because I used to get feel bad because girl, you ain't crying. That means it's not hurting enough. And I'm like, no, because I've grown to this place to where, like you said, I don't have to cry about everything. Now, when something make me mad, but I don't have to.
But we also can't negate that there is such thing called internal wailing. I'm such an internal crybaby.
No, seriously. Seriously.
Oh, and my wife is an external crybaby.
Yeah, let it all out.
Let it all out. So she mirrors the things that I don't want to express. She's my expression. It's a beautiful thing. She's my expression, but I'm and we actually talked about it last night. A lot of times when we see that people do a lot of the crying and they're always in there, as a matter of fact, I think that those are the most well-balanced emotional people. It be us that the internalizer ones, we be the ones that's sensitive.
Very.
We are the sensitive ones. The ones that really show their emotions and they're always crying. Yeah. Those are the ones that have captured the true essence of emotional balance. It be people like me that my wife be like, just tell me if it's okay.
It's fine.
It's okay.
And the thing is too, my friends have to remind me of that as well.
It's okay.
It's okay. And it's like, no, girl, I don't want to cry. She was like, well, why not? Why not let it out and just. And she was like, and I guarantee you, once you let it out, you're going to feel so much better. I'm like, yeah, I feel you. I really do.
But we also have to know that emotions are so much just more than crying.
Yeah.
You know, you can have gratitude as an emotion.
Yes.
Thanksgiving is an emotion. And I think a lot of times when we say that someone is emotional, we equate that to their crybaby. Well, that's not, that's not always the case. But I think that it's important that we, as whole people, that we have that balance to our emotions, that I can recognize the emotions, but the emotions don't control me, nor do they dictate any decisions.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So it's more of that not thinking with sometimes your heart instead of thinking with your mind.
Well, what does the Bible say though? That the heart is deceitfully wicked. We don't even know the full extent of what's really in these hearts.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you're willing to do until you're in the situation to do it, right?
Yes.
And so I think a lot of times people always say, follow your heart. Well, sometimes that heart can really lead you into a bad situation. And so just think about so many guys that trap themselves in these not so great relationships for following their heart. Girls trap their single mothers don't follow their heart because they thought that was the man.
That was the man, right.
So I think that it is very important that while we're on this journey to wholeness, that we really do start thinking more logically, because there has to be a healthy balance of me thinking my way through it and feeling my way through it. And a lot of times, if we're not careful, we would feel our way through everything.
And not really sit in to think.
Right.
Woo, Terrell, I don't know about y'all, but this right here has been a word, okay? But I want to say though, Terrell, if you could leave our listeners, our viewers with anything, what would you leave them with? What would you leave them with? I know we've been dropping gems our episode, but it's like, what would be that one, two thing that you would want them to just take away from today?
It is really simple. Wholeness is important. Stop bleeding.
Okay.
Wholeness is important.
Yeah.
And just stop bleeding.
Recognize
the blood that you constantly shed every single day. But you also got to remember that enough blood was already shed for us.
Yeah.
So why do I have to do it?
Why I got to bleed?
When God died on the cross,
that was it.
He already gave us the answer for everything that we're going to go through in this life. And everything that you go through in this life, you got to take it back to the cross, because He tells us every day we have to pick up our cross daily.
And keep trucking.
So I just want to encourage your viewers and everybody who's listening, watching, whatever, is that wholeness is so important. Don't ignore that.
Yeah.
Because there is destiny out there for people. There is purpose out there for people.
Yes, it is.
And here's the thing. You can get destiny and purpose and be a broken person, but you won't enjoy it.
No, because
you won't enjoy it. Imagine how many CEOs and billionaires out there that have stepped into their purpose, but you won't be able to enjoy it, because those people have failed to realize, I got to stop putting a Band-Aid on this wound and just deal with it. Wholeness is about encompassing the whole person, body, spirit, and soul.
Yeah.
The soul, the body never forgets, and the soul oftentimes doesn't get the notice.
Yeah.
When the spirit is trying to advance you and something far greater than you can see, taste, feel, and understand.
Listen.
That's what I leave with the people. Yeah.
I love it. So, you guys, Terrell is a life coach, and I don't know about y'all, but this has really, it's really pumped me up. Okay.
Right.
So, Terrell, if they want to book a session with you, where can they find you? How can they get in contact with you?
So, if you want to book a session with me, please, you can inbox me on Facebook at Terrell Nelson. My profile picture is me in a navy blue suit.
Yes.
Just let me know that you are interested. Then what we'll do is we'll schedule a consultation, because I also have to be very intentional about my business and who I take on.
Correct.
So once we do the consultation, and then you will go through pretty much the sessions, so that you can deal with your wholeness. So yeah, Terrell Nelson on Facebook. Right now, me and my wife, we are in construction of getting my website and stuff going.
Okay.
But yes, Terrell Nelson, Facebook. Let me know that you are interested, and then we can start the wholeness process.
I love it. Well, Terrell, Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And as we close out this episode, guys, this has been an amazing episode. And we both know that it's going to touch somebody.
Yes.
We both know that. We both know that it's going to touch somebody. And when two believers get together, nobody but God shows up. Nobody but God shows up. But I do want to say, You're Not Done Yet podcast live is next Friday at 6 o'clock. And then also be sure to follow us on Instagram at You're Not Done Yet pod, and your host me at It's Andrea B on Instagram. And I will see you next week.
All right,
bye, guys.